So I saw this movie. It was about this bus whose speed couldn't drop below 55 miles an hour. And if its speed dropped below 55, it would blow up. I think it was called
The Bus That Couldn't Slow Down. Welcome, everybody, to Random Encounter, the official RPG fan podcast. I am your host, Robert Steinman, coming up for air from StarCraft 2, and we're not going to talk about it at all during this podcast, I promise, because it's not an RPG. Again, Pale Robbie on the boards. Joining me today, we have...
This is John McCarroll, webmaster. I am also taking a break from StarCraft 2, but, you know, we have RPGs to talk about, sort of, I guess. This is Keeper X on the boards.
You're now webmaster?
Oh, I have so many titles, you don't know.
God, I hate you.
I want a new one every time you come on the show.
Every time you should have a new title. I want, like, Grand Wizard eventually. The PR manager is going to get us in trouble. All right.
I'm Zach Pintchik, super flat on the boards, news person and RSS maker when it comes out. Soon, guys.
Yeah, you've just been working on that for how long?
The one we have works. It just needs to not suck.
Okay, there we go. And last but not least.
Oh, sorry, I was playing StarCraft. I am Stephen Meyerink. I am a contributing preview editor / sort of soundtrack person too, and I am Taylor on the boards.
You want a piece of me, boy? Okay, we're done. We're done. We promise we're done with StarCraft 2. So
yeah, let's burn. Burn.
So today we got a lot of RPGs to talk about. John's coming racked with a nice topic on random encounters and how much we hate them, which is kind of appropriate for the name of the show. And then, as always, Zach is going to wrap us up with a shorter news segment this week than last week, and I will promise not to make as many comments. So we need games to talk about, and I got a hankering for some spankering. So somebody talk about Death Spank.
All right, I guess I'll take care of that. So Death Bank, the review on the website's already gone live. John Tucker gave it a 90 and gave it an Editor's Choice Award, and I agree completely. Here's the thing. A lot of people have been complaining. Oh, my God, Death Bank's only got 90 quests, or how many quests it's got.
Holy shit.
And it's only like 12 hours long. Okay, I love it. It's funny, and it kept my attention the entire time. I look at so many of these hack and slash titles. You get like Space Siege, and you get like Greed Black Border, which I'm not going to review for the site, even though I got a copy of it because it's horrible. But you look at all these PC games, and like they keep my interest for like 5 hours, and I never play them again. And I was just incredibly happy with Death Bank because it was consistently funny, and even though the gameplay was mash button for weapon, it was engaging, and that was the most important thing. Plus, Death Bank reminded me of The Tick, and that was the most important thing.
Oh, wow.
He so reminded me of The Tick.
See, I really need to play this game, but my PlayStation 3 is still broken. Like, I'm finally going to send it in next week, so I can't play it. But now, if I understand correctly, this is basically a Diablo clone. So you're, like, going around, smashing a lot of stuff, gaining levels, and performing quests, correct?
Yeah, it's standard hack and slash RPG.
Mm-hmm. And I'd like to point out that one of the first quests involves you killing chickens to get their lips, and they address that chickens don't have lips, but then you just move on and capture chicken lips.
Yeah, it seems like who did the writing for the game again? Do we know?
I don't know who did the writing. Ron Gilbert was the creative director.
Right. Okay, yeah, and so it has that. It's a game that's funny, and I think that comedy in gaming is just so hard to do because, again, the joke needs to last normally about 8 or 9 hours instead of like 2 hours or an hour. So is it funny? Is it consistently funny? Or is it one of those things where like you start out funny and then eventually you like want to scratch out your eyes?
No, it's consistently funny because the game is relatively short. And when I say relatively short, I mean, if you do everything, it's going to take 12 hours. It's consistently funny. It's like it's because you spend half to 3/4 of that time pounding enemies into the ground. it really is just like having a 2-hour block of comedy in there. It's not like you're trying to look. You look at one of my favorite games, Baldur's Gate 2, and which, by the way, Baldur's Gate 2 appears on my top 10 list for our upcoming feature.
Oh, what a surprise!
And you look at a character like Minsk, and Minsk is pretty funny throughout both Baldur's Gate 1 and Baldur's Gate 2, and I love him. He's a great character, but he gets kind of old. Deathspank actually is kind of like Minsk, but because he only has about 2 hours worth of total dialogue, it doesn't get old. I think if Deathspank were the length that a lot of people have been complaining about, oh, this should be like Diablo, it would not be funny anymore. But it's the perfect length, and there's the perfect amount of comedy there.
Yeah, and it's only a $20 title, right? 20, 15?
15.
15. Yeah, see, like, I'm okay with tiny little bite-sized games. Like, I actually would like to see a little bit more of that. Not episodic, but just tinier games. Because, as you get older, you have less time to play these games. And sometimes when you're met with, like, something that's a 60-hour RPG, it's kind of like,
I might finish this in a couple of months.
Yeah. Oh, I just got Persona 3. I will finish this in March. Okay.
Though, to be fair, like, I feel the exact same way. They're like Resonance of Fate, which I was supposed to review for the website. I could not get myself into the game. Like, I would look at it and be like, I know I'm nowhere close to finishing this, and I know I'm nowhere close to being even close to my next story. I'm going to have to do random encounters for the next 2 hours. And it just frustrates the hell out of me. Persona 3, though, I actually was able to like, with the portable version, you play it on the can.
I still have not done that with my DS. I almost refuse to.
You're missing out on what the DS's whole purpose is.
Yeah, but I'm afraid I'm going to drop it in there.
Dude,
I think your toilet's kind of messed up then.
Yeah, it must be a really big toilet.
Well, doesn't everybody have a trough that they just kind of go to?
That's a urinal, dude. Yeah.
See, I was living in Colombia for a really long time, so South Carolina, not like Colombia, South America, like Columbia, South Carolina. And if you've been down there, you kind of know what I'm talking about. So.
Okay, and
I've been down there.
Okay, we're done here. We're done.
John, I have a question actually about have you tried any of the girlfriend mode, quote unquote, multiplayer?
No, actually, that was on Kimberly and I's plan for the weekend to play some of that. I wish I had more information. I think it's just kind of second player is there.
Yeah, because I mean I've heard like that's one of the weaker parts of the game. And granted, it's not the main draw, so you can't really fault them for that. But from what I've heard, like the character progression is non-existent on your guest character side. So I'm interested to hear what you.
I don't foresee me having a problem with that, because in a game like that, I think having single console multiplayer, which is what it has, it doesn't actually have online co-op.
Right.
Because you would have two people accessing the menus, I think it would kill any and all flow to the game. So I've got no problem with the second player not having any kind of progression. I mean, honestly, I've played probably about 4 hours of the game, and I just left auto-equip me with the best stuff, because it's not a game that I think I'm going to worry about twinking in, because there's no point. I'm there to play the game to have fun.
Well, and also with these loot whoring games, like, you got to be real careful, because some games you almost get too many drops. Like, I think Diablo and Blizzard really just hits this awesome, this rate of just the drops come at nice intervals, and you're not constantly fiddling with menus. When I played through Torchlight, I actually started to get a little annoyed, because there were so many drops and there was so much a comparison between stats. I felt like I was spending more time in the menus than killing stuff.
That's a really, I agree with that completely, because I wanted to like every game that's tried to be Diablo since Diablo 2. And none of them can, because there's a lot of components that make those games awesome and addictive. But Torchlight, I felt like I had crap in my inventory half the time. And, you get it, and it's like, oh, this is 1 damage point higher, but it's also got an elemental effect. But it doesn't appear to do anything. And
Yeah, you got to be real careful with, because these games are all about flow. It's all about getting in and getting satisfaction, whether it be through character progression or through loot. And if any of those things go wrong, you can actually start to get really annoyed with it, and it takes away from the experience. So now, does Death Spank? You were saying, John, that Death Spank, like you were making it so that you're constantly getting the best equipment equipped onto you all the time. Does that take away from the loot whoring aspect, or are you more focused on the skill-based aspect of the game?
Honestly, for that kind of game, for the way that Deathspank is set up, I am happy to just go and beat things up and see the next funny line.
Okay, so it's the narrative and the comedy that's driving the gameplay forward.
Yeah, for me, like I played MMOs for a long, long time.
I'm sorry.
And there's no whatever. So I am very used to having to twink. You know, I played World of Warcraft and I was a rogue, so I was like, okay, I need 428 hit rating to be 100% hit against an NPC. Okay, no, I don't care about that. Like, that was
Throw more dots. Throw more dots.
I absolutely hated it, and so I'm happy not to do that in Deathspank.
Well, it sounds like you're having a good time with Deathspank, so without further ado, maybe we should move on to some other games. Unless you got anything else, any other final comment you got on it, John?
If you don't own Deathspank and you have a PlayStation 3 or an Xbox 360 and you're listening to this podcast, you have done something wrong.
It's on PC as well, right?
I don't think so. Is it?
Oh, no? I thought it was. I might be mistaken.
I didn't see it on Steam, but maybe I just missed it, in all the StarCraft blood in the water. I don't know.
I don't believe there's a PC version of Deathspank yet.
I just forgot about StarCraft. No more talking about it.
Sorry. It doesn't exist right now. All right, let's move on to Steve, because you got some. You said to us during the pre-show warm-up that you are a confessed Dragon Quest hater.
Yes, I have played Dragon Quest, the second one that came out on DS, Hand of the Heavenly Bride.
That's 5, right? Yeah.
I think.
It's 5.
Yeah, 5.
I got to the end. I don't want to have any spoilers for people who haven't played it, but I got to the end of like the first section of the game, like the first part of your character's story, I guess. And I just got incredibly bored. I was like, everything is so whimsical here, and I hate this guy's music, and I can't stand Akira Toriyama's art design. And
Hey.
I just feel like I'm playing as Goku, and the usual things people take, people don't like about his art style. But it felt like the game had no sense of like weight, and I guess maybe it's because I grew up playing, Phantasy Star and Final Fantasy, where everything is really melodramatic, and I guess I just got so bored. And then I played 8, and I enjoyed the combat in 8, but I got that whole sense of, let's just wander around and do random crap. That bad genie man is bad, but hey, let's go wander around a little bit. And I thought Yangish was the stupidest looking character I've ever seen in my life, and I couldn't stand having him in my party.
But he was so funny. The game had so much charm. Do you hate fun?
I do like fun, which is why in Dragon Quest IX I think I went in not expecting to think it was like Final Fantasy X, because Square Enix, they merged, and they're like, oh, this is Enix's Final Fantasy, and I was like, oh, okay, cool, it sounds awesome. And then it's like, oh, well, not really.
But you can your characters that look like Goku, they can power up, and you can yell over 9,000.
I like Dragon Ball Z. I don't care what anybody says. I'm a 25-year-old man that loves Dragon Ball Z. Screw everybody. Don't judge me.
I watched like 200 episodes of Naruto and Bleach. I'm no more innocent. But so I popped 9 in. I was like, you know what? I'll give it a shot. Everyone says it's great. And what I really loved is that I don't know who had the idea to make a multiplayer turn-based game, but I want to give him like a crown, because that is honestly what got me to play the game. I go, I can, just the way I guess you get into fights, and then, people can run up and join the fight, and it's still turn-based, and everyone customizes their character. And I think I went in not expecting it to be this epic, Final Fantasy 13 level of melodrama, and, it's just kind of charming. And I love the writing, and I think that was something that was even in 8, is just the really clever writing. Like, everything is so, humorously worded. Like, one of the bad guys in the first area is called, a super twooper.
Yeah.
And I kind of laughed, and then the evil cucumber, I was like, "Oh, the cruel cumber, that's funny." The first bad guy is a cucumber.
Yeah, I was showing each one to my girlfriend, and just the Mugician, and I was like,
yeah, the Meowgician. I'm like, that's funny. And so And I've honestly spent the last 3 hours in the game running around outside Stornway, the town where you get access to quests and stuff, I guess. And I've just been leveling up and trying to get money to buy stuff to make my characters look cool. And I'm like, this is awesome. It's like to me, it's almost like a turn-based Diablo without as much loot whoring. And
Okay, but
I'm
wait.
into I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Finish your thought, and then I got a question.
I'm into that like charm now. Like I'm like, all right, now I can kind of get it. This world is kind of cool, and now I feel like I'm just kind of adventuring around, helping people, and being a hero, and I'm down with this.
But now, how much of the game have you played? You said you just got to Stornway, so you're only like maybe 5-6 hours in, right?
Oh, I have like 12 because I've been wandering around.
Okay. See, I was fine with the game for about the first like 25 hours, and then the grind really started to set in. It does get really grind heavy, and if you're cool with that, that's great. But like, the amount of money that you get really slows down to a trickle. The level ups, like you won't level up for like an hour in the game, and it just the last few areas became very trying for me. I was really with the game until about hour 25, and then I started to get annoyed.
I think what might help is that I'm probably going to play most of it multiplayer because my girlfriend just got it for her DS, and then one of my buddies got it. So I think because like in Diablo is a grind. That's all it is. And I'm glad we're talking about Diablo because it's kind of like StarCraft because it's made by Blizzard, but Diablo. But anyway, so Diablo for me is the absolute pinnacle, other than maybe Phantasy Star Online, of hack and slash games.
Yeah,
and
same here.
I feel like that game was a grind constantly, but it was awesome. And I think if I play Dragon Quest with other people, with a party like that, I may not mind the grind as much because at that point we're all just kind of leveling up and getting stronger and having a good time.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting the best part of Dragon Quest IX, which is the multiplayer, and I missed out on that because I don't really have any friends that game around me. I don't really have any friends that have a DS. So I was playing it strictly single player, and it didn't hold up as well. I said it last week. I think that it is in that same Diablo or Phantasy Star vein of being multiplayer focused, but I do think that the single player experience isn't up to the Diablo par. Like Diablo 1 and Diablo 2, I can play those single player and have a lot of fun. It's infinitely better with multiplayer, but I do think Dragon Quest IX is a much better multiplayer game than single player game.
I have gotten the vibe from it that the main story is like completely. I'm not that far, but it seems like, all right, yeah, you're an angel. Okay, now you're down there. Go do stuff. And I feel like basically it's going to be do random crap for the entire game and then bring the benevolence back up to the tree, and then eventually a bad guy will appear.
Yeah, that's about right. I mean, it has some twists and turns here and there, but nothing too major. And just warning you, the last boss is insanely cheap. I'm just throwing that one out there.
I would like to note that I would much rather have, okay, here we go, collect this. Okay, there's a bad guy. Then and I'm not going to say what game this is for, but it came out several years ago. I'm sure most people recognize it. Then a plot twist on the second disc that is, holy crap, we're all just characters in this giant simulation.
I don't even know what you guys are talking about.
It's probably for the best.
Yeah, I'll deal with it. I'm catching up on all my RPGs that I missed out on, so I'll probably play it.
Let's just say that game, the plot twist itself is what stopped me from playing. But I was already hating the combat. I just got so sick of it that the plot twist made me want to put the game down.
The game came out years ago, so...
Okay, well, we're talking about... Can we say this, really? Is this okay? I feel like it's probably... It's like saying
Statute of
Laylos is the last
limitations,
one.
yeah.
Okay, Star Ocean 3.
Oh, okay, yeah, I've heard of that. Okay.
And the thing is, the combat in that game, and my friends always argue with me that the combat was great, and I liked it at first, but I got just little bits and pieces of it started driving me insane. Like the fact that your character would swoosh the air so slowly with heavy attacks, and enemies could hit you on the ground, but you couldn't hit them on the ground. And all right, I'll get into a hate fest, but I was getting really frustrated. And then that part right before the end of disc 1, where the story seems like it's finally getting awesome. I was like, this is going to be crazy cool. You're like at the end of the universe, and there are these angels everywhere, and then all of a sudden it's like, derp, never mind, nothing's important, and you're totally irrelevant.
Yeah.
Not only that, I hated that plot twist so much that it ruined the previous 2 Star Ocean stories because they're like, oh yeah, those were pointless too.
Worst Star Ocean ever.
No, the worst Star Ocean ever was Blue Sphere for the Game Boy Color.
Ooh. Well, let's get us back on track here, guys, so we don't go too long. I don't mean to cut anybody off, but so overall, you're liking Dragon Quest IX, Steve?
I am. I would say that even if you don't like previous Dragon Quest games, it is worth giving a shot if you like Diablo-style games, or you just like games where you can wander around and just kind of explore and find loot and, get stronger.
Yeah, I mean, it's a game that you can play for hours and hours and hours. I guess I was missing out on a portion because I wasn't playing single player, and the grind got to me. I think that a turn-based Diablo-style game is maybe a little bit less appealing to me than a just straight-up hack and slash. So, and then you got another game to talk about us briefly, Steve, don't you?
Yes, Gushing Love Fest for Arc Rise Fantasia. Everybody go buy it and support it so that way they'll make a sequel. The localization, and I feel like I might make the entire internet community hate me because I'm sure somebody out there likes the voice acting. But the voice acting is embarrassingly bad, and I don't care. And yes, I'm going to be opinionated here. I'll go on the board and say it. The voice acting is terrible. If you like it, you have bad taste. I'm sorry.
Yes.
It's just...
Dude, the last time I said something like that, I got in trouble.
I apologize for saying that if I offended anybody, but the voice acting in that game is disgustingly bad. It is the worst voice acting I've heard since the first Resident Evil, and Resident Evil got away with it because there were zombies.
I hope this isn't Chris's blood.
As the Chris's blood person, I'm going to tell you it's okay to say that game has bad voice acting.
Thank you.
But I'm not allowed to hate on Final Fantasy 13. I see how I see how it is. Okay, all right. I see where our checks are going to.
No. Have you played Arc Rise Fantasia?
I have not.
Okay.
Dude, I want to turn it on now and let you hear.
No, that's okay. I'll just turn on StarCraft.
We'll spare the listeners.
Okay. You know what? I want
Let me just put it this way. Go ahead.
I want to be a bit cyclical here. The last game that had a single character, that had voice acting as bad as the voice acting in Arc Rise Fantasia was Star Ocean 3
with Farlene.
Yes.
Oh, now that takes.
And I'm glad we're on the same page there. There is a character in Arc Rise Fantasia called Nico, and I saw him and I was like, oh, cool. He uses a gun. He's got red hair. I'm going to use him. And he's very cool. And honest to God, I took him out of my party, and I usually won't do that because his voice is so stupid. He's like, why? Or hope I don't get shot. Oh, well, oh, man, who needs a bullet in the face? Oh.
What the?
Honestly, and I don't want people to think I don't like the game because I think it's an awesome game. It's an old school turn-based RPG with tons of different abilities in battle, tons of customization. There's all kinds of random esoteric systems that if you like, the PlayStation Final Fantasies or PlayStation era turn-based RPGs, you'll love the game because that's exactly what it is. And it's a complete blast. The combat is fun. I just got to, I guess, the first major boss because it plays different music. And even though he's totally irrelevant to the story, he smoked me like 3 times. And it's the first time I've died in the entire game. And from what I've heard on the boards, the boss fights are actually very challenging and they really demand, some strategy. And I think if you just like old school turn-based RPGs, anime style, then it's totally worth buying.
So there's no Japanese voice acting that we could pretend is good.
There is not. However, you can silence the voice acting, and I did that at first, but the problem is that the character's mouths still move in battle and there's no talking at all. So it's almost like they'll hit and it's like this creepy, eerie, echoing silence. And you're like, that's weird. And then it zooms into the character and their mouth is moving and I'm like, what?
Is there anything lower?
And then I turn it on and I'm like, oh, no, I'm sorry. I turned it up. Never mind. I changed my mind.
Is there anything lower on this remote than mute?
But the music, I even mentioned in my preview, the music is awesome. It's Yasunori Mitsuda and a few other composers that I'm not as familiar with. But all the music is great. The battle themes are great. And, it's got a really detailed world map, little side quests you can do to run around, kill stuff. And it's just, if you like, it's basically somebody, I remember, described it as a Tales game with a turn-based battle system, and that's pretty much what it is, only it's not quite as glitchy as some of the more recent, or I guess not Vesperia, but like Tales of the Abyss, my favorite Tales, was pretty glitchy.
And what's the platform for this again?
It's on the Wii, and it is budget priced because I think they didn't spend any money in the localization.
How budget is budget?
It is $39.99.
That's not budget. Back in my day, games used to cost $39.99.
What are you talking about? Like Super Nintendo and Genesis games were expensive.
I got
Chrono Trigger was $90.
Chrono Cross was $40.
Phantasy Star 4 was like $100 when it came out.
Yeah, that's true. I played that on the Sega Channel. I got lucky.
Oh, that was the Sega Channel.
Sega Channel.
Dude, my uncle had the Sega channel. I used to be like, this thing is awesome. There's like 70 games on it.
Did you used to stay up like all night? That when
I would. I just be
Yeah.
like, what's this game? Oh, it's terrible. What's this one? Oh, it's terrible. What's this one?
I remember playing the Immortal, and I think it scarred me for life. I was like, oh my god, there's blood.
Dude, is that
Like
the game where you start out with the potion
Yep.
and if you drink it, you die?
Yep.
Oh, like last year, I actually went onto the Sega board and I was like, what is this game? You start with a potion and it had really weird combat. They're like, oh, it's the Immortal. And I went and played it and I got halfway through and I was like, this game's terrible.
That game is awesome because you die like all. It's like Dragon's Lair, only not fun.
Yeah.
I love going back and playing all those Genesis games that you loved as a kid and realizing this game is horrible.
Oh yeah, hey, Gunstar Hero still holds up, and you know what? That actually has one of my favorite Castlevanias. I think Castlevania Bloodlines is a very underrated Castlevania on the Genesis. That's an underrated Castlevania. I'm sorry, I'm getting off topic here. Okay, all right. Anything else? Go ahead, John.
No, I was going to take you over your duties as host, and say we're done with Archives unless you have anything else to add.
Oh, geez, thanks. So John, you want to add a podcast host to your list of repertoire? I see how this is.
No.
He's
Here,
already added it. In fact, he's adding it now.
A two, John.
I've got like 6 or 7 more weeks of titles that I've held, so we're good for right now.
I hate you so much. I hate you.
I've
Okay.
worked for the website for 8 years now.
I have worked for the website for 3 months, and look what I started, a podcast. Booyah. Grandma. Booyah.
Whatever.
Okay, all right. Zach was playing Mass Effect 2.
I played Mass Effect. it's not an episode without talk about Mass
If
Effect.
we talk about Mass Effect again, somebody is literally going to punch us. So
John, can you tell Bioware to send the check directly to my house, please?
yeah. Can we start collecting royalties on this?
Bioware should love us.
Yeah. So is Mass Effect 2 still good, Zach?
It's still pretty good. Well, this is the first I picked it up, like when it came out in January 26th or whatever, and I put it down like, let's say the end of February, just like with let's say 5 loyalty missions to go and like the ending, and so I haven't played it in 6 months, like close to 6 months now. So it's almost like I'm rediscovering it, and I think I really left some of the worst loyalty missions for last, so it's kind of disappointing in that respect, but I mean, it's still good.
Yeah, I mean, it's the loyalty missions just start to grate on you a little bit because that's the meat of the game, and I think that's where they kind of screwed up a little bit.
But I mean, like I was playing like Jacob's loyalty mission, and he's worthless. I played Thane's loyalty mission, and that was less exciting than I hoped it would be.
But at least that one was doing something different.
It was that one, yeah.
That one wasn't we're going into an installation and we're going to shoot aliens in the face. That was we're going to watch people shoot each other in the face. But still, it was slightly different, and I liked that.
And another thing. Oh, sorry, go for it.
I thought Thane's mission was really cool. Like, you had that good cop, bad cop thing going on.
Actually, I really enjoyed that. I was like, that's kind of cool. But I was thinking like, oh, I'll let Thane be good cop just because. But I'm a Paragon character, and that really didn't work out in my favor.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then the other thing that kind of rubbed me the wrong way was when I had left the game, like let's say 5-6 months ago. The reason that I left it was because I kind of screwed up my character a little bit. And so like I have just a really crappy submachine gun and a really crappy sniper rifle, and I couldn't really kill anything in close quarters combat. But
download some of the free DLC and do those missions, and that will help you out, and you'll get extra weapons.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, download the arc projector. That gun is amazing. It is the best
I have a couple of. It's nice to have the DLC because, like, if you, from what I've heard, if you play it after the game, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And I'm tempted to just get all of it right now. Maybe not some of the weapon stuff, but like just like the Kasumi's thing and maybe the Overlord thing, just because like it right now playing. Like I have the Firewalker mission, which like wouldn't have been in an original playthrough if you'd gone through the game in like the first 2 weeks or so. Which it's interesting, like. That's one thing that I really commend BioWare for is they've really kept their promise on Mass Effect 2 and Dragon Age DLC.
Yeah. I think the last mission of Mass Effect 2 is actually very excellent. I think the suicide mission is very well developed and actually hits an emotional chord, outside of the little Contra bit at the end. That was kind of silly. And you'll see what happens when you get there, Zach. But, I just wish the rest of the game was like that, because instead of it is just a lot of going into installations with chest-high walls and shooting people, which is fine because the mechanics work very, very well, and they do throw some nice things in there to keep the combat interesting. But it felt safe, and it felt a little bit safer than what I was expecting for Mass Effect 2. So maybe that was in response to people like me who didn't like Mass Effect 1, but I think Mass Effect 2 is a much safer game in that respect.
Yeah, that's something I was also thinking about, how the different stats worked in the first game while I was playing through it today. It's just I remember liking, having electronics and having, decryption or whatever, whatever those older stats were, actually mean something for your party, because I was sitting at the character select screen today and I was like, well, who am I going to bring on this mission? I have to bring the person whose loyalty mission it is. And then I was really left without any direction to choose one of the other 10 characters that I had. It's something that I'm kind of hoping that, they'll take the criticism back, into account and bring some more of those RPG elements back into the third game, just because it really does stray too much on the lines of third-person shooter with RPG elements.
Yeah, it's still a good game, but I think
definitely
it's going to be interesting to see what Mass Effect 3 does and see if they go even further down the shooting elements or where they go. So is that all we got to talk about Mass Effect 2? I feel like we're talking about the same game as every week, and I'm getting a little tired of it. So
I mean, StarCraft's an RPG, right?
Right. We need to talk about something new. So I played Dragon Age this week.
The Queen of Blades.
God. Stop. And Tara Adun Executor. No, stop it. I was playing through the Dragon Age Awakening expansion, and I actually finished it about 3 hours before StarCraft 2 came out. I felt like I was doing homework more than anything else. I gotta get it done. The Dragon Age Awakening expansion pack it's decent. It does add. It picks up exactly where the Dragon Age main quest leaves off, despite the ending, and people will know what I'm talking about there. It doesn't matter how Dragon Age ended, you just kind of start back up, and you get a whole new list of skills and a whole new set of quests. It's about 10 to 15 hours, depending on how fast you go and how much time you spend doing the side quests. There's lots and lots of new skills for the three character classes. The mage is still insanely overpowered, and even more so now. Like the new mage skills basically make him a god. But the warrior and rogue have been increased a lot, so that now they're not completely useless. I take that back. The rogue was never completely useless, but the warrior was, except for soaking up damage. But those two character classes have come up a little bit. But the only thing that really bothered me about the expansion, two things. One, the original price tag was $40, and $40 for 10 to 15 hours of content when the main game was $50 on PC and it was like 60 hours. That kind of stung. And so I actually picked the game up on Steam sale so I could justify it a little bit. The other thing was that, once again, the game just kind of ends very similarly to Dragon Age, where it just kind of, there's lots of choices to be made, and it feels like there's going to be like some huge ramification, and then it just kind of ends, and you get text saying what happened. And that really irked me. It irked me at the end of Dragon Age, but the ending was still solid enough that I could justify it. But Dragon Age Awakening pulls it one step further, and just when things are getting interesting. We've joked before that Dragon Age, you're basically fighting, the orcs from Lord of the Rings. I'm sorry, they're Darkspawn, but they're orcs, let's be honest. But it doesn't really... you don't find out exactly what they are until you start playing Awakening, so it's really cool to find out a little bit more about the Darkspawn, and then the game just kind of ends. So I'll be interested to see if Dragon Age 2 picks up where Awakening and Origins left off, or if it's just going to pick up where Origins left off. I feel like I'm the only one talking. Did anybody else play Awakening, or am I the only one?
No, but I find it disappointing that you say that it really doesn't matter how you finish Dragon Age 2.
That really ticked me off.
The last BioWare game with an expansion, I didn't play a whole lot on Neverwinter Nights, so I don't know how that played out. But Baldur's Gate 2, like the expansion pack was really part of
The end of the game.
Yeah, it was like it really was an extension. It wasn't here's more content. And I think that's what I want, an expansion pack. And actually, as you're looking at this, I'm looking at my copy of Dragon Age Awakening, which I've played like 2 hours of the original Dragon Age. So I need to play a lot of it. And it's just really disappointing to hear that, because I like BioWare's games.
Yeah.
I think.
Go ahead.
Also,
Go ahead, Steve.
I think, especially RPG expansions should be like Throne of All from Baldur's Gate 2, or Lord of Destruction from Diablo. That was Act 5 of Diablo. It was the end of the story that got started in Diablo 2. Throne of All, the expansion to Baldur's Gate 2, literally the game is chapters 1 through 9, and then Throne of All is chapters 10, 11, and 12. Mm-hmm. And it finishes the story that started in the original Baldur's Gate. And it kind of sucks that it seems like with Dragon Age, they just kind of were like, oh, yeah, by the way, here's some more stuff.
Yeah,
it'd be like if
there's like
it'd be
two
like if
lines of
Fallout
dialogue. Sorry, not trying to cut you off, but there's like 2 lines of dialogue that link the end of Origins to like all the huge decisions that you make at the Lands Meet at the end of Origins, which I loved, with the beginning of Awakening, and then you're done. And then it's just like, now go do your mission.
And what sucks is that like there was more connection between Baldur's Gate 1, Tales of the Sword Coast, and Baldur's Gate 2 than it seems like you're saying there is between Dragon Age and Dragon Age expansion pack.
Yeah, and I think the Dragon and Steve brought up the Lord of Destruction expansion pack which for Diablo 2, which I think is the best expansion pack ever made for a game.
Without a doubt.
Because it didn't just add an ending to the game; it added 2 new character classes and a ton of new stuff that you could do, like a ton of new, the runes system, and all these new things. And so it was content being added to the original game, not just an ending. And the things that they did to make the warrior and rogue so much better in Awakening, that should be applied to the original Dragon Age. And I think it would fix up most of my problems with the balancing issues in Dragon Age. And now you wouldn't have mages that are so insanely godlike powerful. And that maybe would cut down on some of the frustration with the game.
Which I do want to say one thing about what you just said. The best expansion pack ever is going to be whatever they called the first next StarCraft 2.
Heart of the Swarm?
Yes.
Heart of the Swarm. But the best one ever, I'm sorry, is going to be Legacy of the Void.
I'm sorry, Zerg all the way, baby. Zerg all the way. Oh, God, we're going to piss so many people off with this podcast, guys.
And Taro Tassadar.
Oh, God, we live for the Swarm. Okay, we're done. So any other questions you guys got for me with Awakening?
No.
Okay, all right. John, start ranting about random encounters.
Okay, so people are going to hate this because I'm going to talk about why random encounters exist. I actually didn't read. We have a thread on our forums that one of our editors started about random encounters and how
Who's
they don't
eating candy?
Good idea.
Zach?
I am doing no such thing.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, I want to talk about random encounters and how, because people are like, oh my god, random encounters. Why are there random encounters in games now? Well, let's take a look at Dragon Quest, the original Dragon Quest. Some of you may know it as Dragon Warrior because of copyright issues in North America. So you look at this game, and you are on essentially what is a square grid, and you move from square to square. There's really only 2 ways to take care of encounters there. And that is, you can see your enemies there, and they move when you move. And that's actually very common in games. They're called roguelikes. Any game like NetHack or Shiren the Wanderer has it like that, where you can see your enemies and they move when you move. The only other way to do it is calculate. Okay, you move from one square to the next. Calculate. Okay, is there an enemy there? Yes, no. That's where random encounters come from. And technology in that era, that's how it had to be for a turn-based game.
What about Zelda 2?
Zelda 2 is not turn-based.
But Zelda 2 didn't have random encounters. You could see the enemies you're on a grid and you're walking around and you had enemies. I'm not trying to be, a dick. I'm just saying, like.
No, and I'm saying, like,
Zelda
Zelda 2 is pretty similar to a roguelike in that sense. You could actually stop and the enemies would still move around, but if you could see the enemies on the map, But you look at games now like the Persona titles, some of the more recent Tales titles, where there's interaction on the map, and you're able to stop the enemies beforehand. You're able to see them. You're able to escape. And in some sense, Zelda 2 did have that, where you can run away from those enemies. But a lot of the times it's futile. You might be able to see that enemy, but you might just have to fight him a lot of the time. And I think, but from a technological perspective, it was very easy to do random encounters because it was easier to display no sprites and just have it calculate every square than to display sprites, have them run around. And I think that some of that just simply stuck. Like, you look at modern games, and I think Persona, the more recent Personas 3 and 4, do it incredibly well, where you can see an enemy. There's going to be some situations where you're going to have to fight that enemy, but you have interaction with them. Mm-hmm. And, the recent Tales games do it well.
Dark Rise Fantasia also does it.
Yeah, Dragon Quest 9, you can see the enemies on screen. I wish that you could actually hit them like in Persona 3 to make it a little bit of a different startup. I think I would have liked that more.
And I think that is the evolution in a turn-based RPG. I think that that's exactly what it is, and somewhat that's akin to a roguelike or to Zelda 2, where you can see your enemies and you choose whether or not you want to interact with them. Mm-hmm. And oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say this is when you say a turn-based RPG. Whenever I think about random encounters or this sort of thing, I always think about an Eastern style RPG, because with a Western style RPG like say Mass Effect or Dragon Age, each one of the combat scenarios is planned out. You're basically walking down a hallway, Final Fantasy 13, and the combat scenarios are already planned out, and so you're just interacting with them. So you're more talking about Eastern style. Traditional turn-based RPGs when you're talking about this.
Because you look at most modern Western RPGs, and there's really not a whole lot of okay, here, let's travel around. There's going to be enemy encounters. You look at let's take Fallout 3. Fallout 3 has what you consider to be random encounters. You have enemies that just kind of pop up in the wasteland, and you shoot them. And it really there aren't that many turn-based Western RPGs that have random encounters anymore. You're looking at Dragon Age is turn-based in some sense, and but Mass Effect's not turn-based. Most of these new Western RPGs are hybrid titles because that's what appeals to the Western market. But even the random encounters in Fallout 1 and 2, where you're going from place 1 to place 2 on the map, and it puts you, oh my god, there's a rad scorpion. You can just run away, and you're back on the world map.
Oh my god, there's a rad scorpion.
Happens to me every day when I'm walking home from work.
As I grew up in the desert, there are rad scorpions everywhere.
Like real rad scorpions?
Yeah, they're like giant, and they kill you, and I hit like 4.
And you can take their tails and barter them for like 10 bottle caps?
Yes, that's exactly right.
I hate both of you. I despise both of you.
But I think that when people complain, I don't get why people complain about random encounters today.
I know.
Yeah, like, because here's the thing. Most games now, if they have random encounters, that's because they're not holding your hand and doing what Western RPGs do and saying, okay, encounter's going to be here, encounter's going to be here, encounter's going to be here. I honestly think that what Mass Effect 2 does is brilliant because it gives you experience at the end of the mission. You can grind, you can go kill every single enemy in a level, and it doesn't matter because you're just going to level up at the end of the mission anyway.
See, I think Persona 3 and Persona 4 completely spoiled me to the JRPG, because those are perfect in my view. Like, that you see the enemies on screen, you can interact with them, it gives you advantages when you go into the actual battle screen, and I love that. And when I couldn't do that in Dragon Quest 9, like, I could see the enemies on screen and I could avoid them, but when I couldn't interact with them on screen, I was like, well, what's the point? Like, the only point for having them on screen is that now I can avoid them most of the time. Sometimes they'll chase after me, but why does it matter if I see them on screen? You could have just made them random and it would have been slightly more annoying. What annoys me is high random encounter rates where, you take 2 steps and you get into a battle, or when you're just trying to explore, like say you're really not trying to grind, like maybe the enemies aren't giving enough experience to where you would actually gain a level in a reasonable amount of time. You just want to explore. You want to find new items in Tartarus or whatever in Persona 3. Then you want to avoid the random encounters because you get into them and they don't really give you anything and they're kind of boring, So
Yeah.
I kind of agree with that. I don't mind random encounters so much, but when you say trying to explore, there's a dungeon in that game Black Sigil that came out. I think it was like 2 years ago. I like that game. I didn't think it was bad at all. And even when people are complaining about the high encounter rate, I'm like, well, the combat's pretty fun. It's kind of time consuming. There's a dungeon, I believe it was called the House of Black Stone or something along those lines. And it was like a 50 million zillion hour dungeon made far worse by the fact that it literally was the longest dungeon up to that point in the game by a huge margin. And every 3 steps you got into a fight. And the fights in that game take a good minute and a half to finish, just because at that point you don't have a ton of area of effect attacks and you have to take each guy out individually. And that, I think, is probably the most annoyed I've ever been with random encounters.
And Black Sigil had a pretty slow battle system too, which didn't help things at all. Which I would like to note, any game developers out there listening to you, if you are making a turn-based RPG, for the love of God, do what the Shin Megami Tensei games do, and let me hit a button and shorten all the animations and just have my guys attack. That is the most useful button in any game ever.
Yeah, I do hate it when random encounters go too long, be it the podcast or be it an actual battle. And I think Dragon Quest IX, like the fact that the battles do start getting kind of long toward the end and they never get any shorter, it really started to annoy me. And Persona's battles are just like quick, in and out real quick, but there's lots of strategy and you can really screw up really fast. So
Wild Arms 3 had that problem too, where the battles just took forever.
Yeah, the battles have to be short, and then Western RPGs having these scripted battles isn't always a good thing. Like there's one battle in Dragon Age. Like I've played the game I think three times the whole way through. And every time this one battle gets me because like you're fighting a bunch of skeletons or whatever, and then a door swings open and in walks a mage, and you have 2 seconds before that mage fireballs your whole party. And if he hits you with that fireball, it's so powerful it probably will kill you. And he always gets me because like I need to position my guys just right to kill him. So sometimes by having these scripted battles, you actually make the game kind of less fun. It's sort of the argument that I made a while back when I was talking to a friend about open world games. Open world games have to be as easy as possible because if you screw up in them, you have to repeat so much ground and you may drive for like 5 minutes to get back to the mission start area. Or you're going to see the exact same things over and over again. You have to make sure that it's challenging, but that if you die, they change it up somehow. Because I always know that wizard is going to come through the door in Dragon Age. So that first time you got me, it's like, ho, 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 game, you're so clever and you beat me because I didn't see it coming. Well, guess what? Now I'm just going to play it again, and I got him.
But that exact reason is this is an MMO, but that's why I hate APB. APB is awful.
Yeah, it is.
You do a mission and it's like, oh, I just died. You do a mission. Oh, that guy still shot me again. Like,
Dragon Age started to feel like a Rainbow Six game. Where, like, in Rainbow Six, it'd be like, okay, I tag this guy, and this guy in the room. You go in, you take all them out, and then some guy that you didn't see with a shotgun blows your brains out. And it's like, okay, well, now I know where he is, and I'm going to get him next time. That kind of gameplay really drives me nuts, and that really started to drive me up a wall in Dragon Age. I think Mass Effect 2 did a much better job of making the battles feel more dynamic so that I didn't run into too many problems with that.
Yeah. No, I agree completely. Like, there's a point where scripting a battle to that sense, or to that amount, just really doesn't make it fun anymore.
Yeah, there was one mission. I know it isn't an RPG, but I think it's appropriate for the discussion. There was one mission in Grand Theft Auto 4. It was this huge, elaborate chase scene, and I ended up failing on it 2 or 3 times. And every time I reloaded it, you would notice that the chase scene, the exact same things would happen at the exact same points. Like a tractor trailer would like jackknife or something, or a car would flip and explode. And at that point, I was like, oh, so Grand Theft Auto is no longer an open world game. Like that used to be the appeal of Grand Theft Auto 3 and Vice City was like these missions, anything could happen. No, now they're scripting the missions. It's going to happen the same way every time. This is kind of not what we want. You know? Does that make sense?
Hey, Nico, you want to play darts?
Ugh.
Hey, Nico, you want to go on date? Hey, Nico, you want to get pizza?
In all seriousness, guys, again, not an RPG. Chinatown Wars was the most fun I'd had with a Grand Theft Auto game since Vice City. It honestly was. It has its problems here and there, but that was a return to the fun Grand Theft Auto games. Just a little.
It's because it didn't have Roman Bellic in it.
That's true. Hey, Nico, you want to go see some things that would be expletive deleted? Yes. All right. So are we done talking about random encounters? Are we ready?
I think okay. So I want to wrap it up.
Okay. I'm gonna poke Zach with a stick and get him ready for news.
So you
I'm
made a dark
alive. I'm
shrine
awake.
to summon a dark temple.
Don't.
He's working on his tech trees.
The one thing that I'd actually like to maybe discuss at a later point, because it doesn't have to do specifically with the randomness of encounters, is just encounters in general. And I mean, that's a very broad topic. And I had like one of those fleeting moments of inspiration, like earlier in the week when I was playing. I played Alan Wake, which uses encounters to, it's not an RPG. It uses encounters to kind of heighten this sense of horror. And then I played, I think it was when I was playing Mass Effect 2 today, and maybe another more traditional turn-based RPG during the week, which I just can't remember what I was playing. But it just, the notion of, like why am I doing this action, which may or may not be, so interesting. Like, for example, like you guys were talking about Dragon Quest IX. It's not exactly, it's not a hugely challenging game, and having the roteness of the battles, especially it gets later into the game. I mean, that may be something to talk about at a later date, but especially since I don't have any other thoughts on the matter.
Okay, no, mark it as a future topic. Would you rather have a 15-hour game that's action? Would you rather have Mass Effect 2 or would you rather have Dragon Quest 9? That's a perfect topic for future.
Yeah, I'd rather have Mass Effect 2, honestly.
I'd rather have Commander Shepard.
You had the female Commander Shepard, right?
You realize that you could name your character in Dragon Quest 9 Shepard.
And I could make him bald.
But then he would look like Krillin.
But he can't use a gun.
But he would be like Krillin and go down.
Is there any high-tech armor in Dragon Quest 9? I want to paint N7 on there and just run around being like, I'm Commander Shepard, and this is my favorite inn in Stornway.
God, I hate it. I hate everyone.
So, random encounters, there are games like Black Sigil which came up that still do random encounters. I don't know why. There are games that do it well enough for Eastern-style RPGs. You look at Persona 3, you look at Persona 4, you look at Arc Rise Fantasia, you look at the Tales games. That's what a random encounter should be now, and I don't know why other games don't do that.
Yeah, I mean, Chrono Trigger did it way back in, 95? Come on now. Yeah, come on. Okay, so now, Zach, you've been quiet like a slumbering beast ready to feast on the news.
It's
like
mostly because
Templar.
I've had to put my microphone on mute a couple of times just because of the dogs. So, yay! But news.
I've been working on your tech trees. Don't
dogs or Zerglings?
Yeah, Zerglings.
Both.
I am the Queen of Blades. I'm kind of upset that Kerrigan no longer looks like a Rastafarian hooker.
We need more pylons. I mean, news.
We need
news.
Construct additional pylons.
Okay. First news of the day. Shining Force. No.
Oh.
Shining Force is on your iPhone and or iPod Touch.
That's actually
I think that's
cool.
awesome.
It's also $3.
Which one is it? Which one is it?
The original from the Genesis.
Wow.
1993 Shining Force.
I played that on Sega Channel.
Shining Force 2 was the first RPG other than Phantasy Star 4 I think that I ever played, and I played it for as a kid it felt like I played it for 4 years, and I think it was probably not that long, but that game was awesome.
I have a question for you, Zach, and you may or may not have the answer to this. Is it a port of the original game, or is it the Resurrection of the Dark Dragon remake? Does it have all the card crap?
I was Dark Dragon the Game Boy Advance one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, no, it is the original 1993 Shining
That's
Force.
awesome. That's so
So
awesome.
so what? How much was that? Since we were talking about the cost of games, how much was that when it came out? Because it's $3 now.
$11 billion.
Yeah,
Oh,
so,
the original
yeah,
Genesis
the original.
version.
Yeah. How much was that?
It was like $50, I think.
50 or 60.
Well, back
yeah.
in '93, we used to trade in mules, so it's about 3 mules.
All right, so Shining Force now can be yours on iOS devices for $3.
That's awesome.
Trace dollars, if you will.
That is awesome, actually. I love that kind of stuff. I mean, just the ability to play these old games on new media. I mean, that's just great. And Shining Force was such a great game, and that was one of my first RPGs. You know, I cut my teeth on Phantasy Star 4 as well, so that's cool.
Did you like Domingo?
Didn't make it that far.
Really?
Because Sega Channel kept on like changing every month, and
That's right. I remember you had to like beat it before the save. Yeah.
Sometimes you just randomly lose your saves. Like I got pretty far in that game one time, and then I ended up like losing everything.
I think that Sega has kind of backdoored themselves into creating whenever they remake these games for whatever platform, they've backdoored themselves into a minuscule price point, which I don't think is a bad thing. Like for the consumer, because you can buy Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection for $19.99.
Yeah,
And it's like 60 games, isn't it, or something?
You can get Comic Zone. I love that game. I love that game. That little rat, that thing was cool.
I mean, what this really kind of points at, what this brings to mind for me is also, now that Sega's getting into the iPhone RPG space, I'm interested to see how that develops, because I mean, Square Enix has had a pretty strong presence, whether it's quality stuff like the soon to arrive Final Fantasy Tactics, or
I'm sorry, what?
On the iPhone, you didn't know? Isn't Final Fantasy Tactics coming out on the? I don't believe.
Is it the iPhone or the iPad?
I thought it was it's one of those.
I think if it comes up for one, it works on all of them, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it depends, unless it's specifically made for the iPad. But I mean, semantics aside.
E3 they had Final Fantasy War of the Lions and Secret of Mana.
Wow.
On the iPhone.
Yeah, on the iPhone.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean,
actually start supporting the Evil Empire.
You see, exactly. So I'm really interested to see how that develops the Apple devices in general as a gaming platform, because like Shining Force, Secret of Mana, Final Fantasy Tactics are 3 very like hardcore
very well-loved games.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, not only hardcore but well loved indeed, and like to have those games be present on a device that I always have in my pocket, but to have that available, I'm really interested to see, like, in the tremendously off chance that Nintendo decides to, or even like a smaller company decides to start throwing their games up on there. It's gonna change the way the handheld space. I mean, it's already changed in a large way, but
see, and I'll go one step further with these re-releases. Like when Mega Man 9 came out, I was really hoping that we were going to see a revival of putting together small development teams to give us sequels or new versions of old games. Like, why not
a new Sonic?
No. I'm saying take like 20 guys and make a new Vagrant story. Take a couple of guys and go work on a new Gunstar Heroes or something like that. Do the games that people want to play. Like, how many people do you think it would take to make a isometric, old school, just like the PS1 Resident Evil game today? That people would actually just charge a couple of bucks for it, and people would play it. Like, you can make these kind of retro, new age games, and I think they would sell. I mean, Mega Man 9 sold well.
I love Mega Man 9.
I think there's a huge difference between making a 2D game and a 3D game. There's art drawbacks for both, but it's significantly less expensive to do an 8-bit art game. I'm just going from pure numbers aspect.
No, that's true. But like Chris and Joe are made up of like 20 polygons each in the original Resident Evil. But like you see what I'm saying? Just you can really do something unique where it's kind of like a retro game, but it's new. And I was really thinking that Capcom was going to, strike really hard with this. Koji Igarashi has been making all of these Castlevania clones of Symphony of the Night, basically, on DS and Game Boy Advance for years. Like, I was expecting to start seeing something like this. Wouldn't we all pay for like an old school PS1 Metal Gear game? Like, would we pay for that today? Yeah, hell yeah, we would. So like,
I paid for Arc-Rise Fantasia.
There you go.
I do want to make a note. You say that you wanted a sequel to Gunstar Heroes. It was called Super Gunstar Heroes. It came out for the Game Boy Advance.
That didn't happen.
It was okay.
That didn't happen. My beloved treasure has never made a bad game. I remember playing Alien Soldier on my Sega channel. This is like the Sega Channel podcast. This is the Blizzard Sega Channel podcast today.
Blizzard made and Taro Tassadar.
Ah, jeez. Oh, God.
More news. EverQuest 2 goes free to play with EverQuest 2 Extended.
It's still here?
Yeah, I mean,
No, I'm not. No, I'm not trying to be funny. Are the servers still up?
Still
still pretty popular.
EverQuest 2. Last time I talked to my guys at SOE, they had pretty strong subscriber base for it. Like, it's still a high-profile game. It's not World of Warcraft, but nothing is World of Warcraft.
Yeah, World of Warcraft is on a whole nother level. But I remember I had a couple friends who played EverQuest 2 in college, and they were kind of EverQuest 2 haters. They played the original game a lot, and they didn't like the sequel, and they ended up moving on to World of Warcraft for that very reason.
Most people who played the first EverQuest didn't like EverQuest 2.
Yeah, it wasn't their cup of tea. I heard the argument that they dumbed it down, whatever that means to an MMO player. Was that the main complaint? Does anybody know?
It's a lot more accessible. I played the original EverQuest when I was like 12, and it was completely beyond me. I got to like level 10, and I was like, how does this game work? I don't understand. And my friends and I played EverQuest 2 when it first came out for a little while, and then we jumped ship to WoW. And then last year, my two friends and I, we played EverQuest 2, and it's definitely a lot more accessible. Perhaps in some ways people might not like than the original EverQuest. It's just a little bit faster. It's a lot more forgiving, it seems like.
I mean, if you've played WoW, then you have a fairly good approximation. I mean, it's not exactly the same, but it's very similar.
So now Zach.
So I mean, the details on this. Unlike Lord of the Rings Online, which announced that they were going free to play at the beginning of, I think, June, it's actually very similar. EverQuest 2 Extended is basically in the same manner that Lord of the Rings Online is going free to play. They have tiered subscription models. So there's a free subscription, which is, there's limits on the amount of bag slots, gold, use of high level items, spells, races, classes, stuff like that. And then there's a $10 upgrade, which gets you, I think, more of everything.
And that's a one-time $10 fee, right?
One-time $10 fee. And then there's a $15 a month subscription, which gets you, pretty much everything that you want, except for you still only have 4 races and 8 classes, which you can buy more of. And then there's a $200 a yearly subscription, which gets you the newest expansion. So that's, I mean, if you think $15 a month is a little bit more expensive on a yearly scale. So if you're going to play this thing, if you're guaranteed you're going to play for a year, then that's probably the way to do it.
Oh, good. I'm sorry.
The one thing to note is that EverQuest 2 Extended and EverQuest 2, what's going on now, are 2 different games.
Okay,
and that's really where the big difference is between Lord of the Rings Online and EverQuest 2.
Basically, think of it as they're all on different servers. Like, it's completely separate from the current EverQuest 2.
See, that's what doesn't make sense to me. Why would someone pay $15 a month to have limited access to EverQuest 2 as opposed to paying $15 a month to play EverQuest 2?
Well, the one big addition to the game, aside from, being free to play and whatnot, is a larger in-game store. Because right now they have real money trade for non-stat items, so like all cosmetic items, and it's fairly limited. I don't remember what the name of SOE's service is, but EverQuest 2 Extended is going to have a full in-game store, much like the one Lord of the Rings Online announced, where you can buy potions, weapons, armor, I don't know, houses, the races, probably hats, the races and expansion packs and classes you will have to buy through there. So, it's basically, if I recall, when they first brought out, when they first decided to introduce real money trade stuff into, like officially into EverQuest 2, there was a big community outrage against it. And so this is, like this separation of extended versus regular EverQuest 2 is to keep that item store kind of cordoned off into,
See, and that's what they did the same thing with RMT and EverQuest 2, though. Like, if you wanted to do RMT and auction stuff, you had to be on an exchange server. And I think what they did with SOE Exchange was perfect. It worked from a player perspective. It worked from a Sony perspective. It worked for everybody involved. This one still doesn't make sense to me, though.
I mean,
I honestly, it doesn't make sense to me either, other than it seems like, I guess you could say, okay, this month I want to have the $15 subscription, but next month I may not want to, but I don't want to go over to regular EverQuest servers. I want to, keep my free subscription occasionally. Like if you want, this month to have the extra bag slots or something.
Yeah.
But even then, just buy regular EverQuest.
Yeah. Well, I guess the big goal is to keep that item store separate. And it's also they're going to have a streaming client that you can just you download however many meg thing that I think, if I read it correctly, runs through your web browser. But I'm not it might be a Quake Live sort of plugin, but or like Battlefield Heroes sort of thing. But yeah, so it's a very small download, and it's basically they're trying to get as many new and casual players as they can in, because it is in essence a free to play with microtransactions model, so that money is that they're going to get from people who I said that I would probably play Lord of the Rings Online when it goes free to play, and I'll probably end up throwing them a couple bucks for things that I'd want in my game. And I feel like they're going for that same market, is for the people who would throw them a couple bucks if they, if let's say a new race is $2, I might be, if I wanted to play as the frog people, I might do that.
But now I'm confused. I'm confused here, honestly. I want to go back a couple steps.
Yep.
They're saying that this is free to play, but you pay $200. You could pay $200 to play this game.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
$200 for a year.
How can they say it's free then? I missed something here.
Because the game by itself is free, but the idea.
Okay, but the subscription isn't free.
Yeah, well, there is a free subscription. Here, I'll read you the.
I don't want to spend too much time on this, but just real quick, because I got really confused.
It works like a standard microtransaction game, essentially. There are some that have subscription models where you can pay X dollars a month and get access to
premium
extra
content. Like that worked out so well for Hellgate London. Okay, I got it. Okay. Good luck.
Yeah, I mean, the subscription gets you all the character classes.
Okay.
Unlimited gold, not to use but to earn. And then
if you give me $5, I will let you earn money.
I will gladly pay you.
Well, if you have the free subscription, you only get five gold per level. Yeah. Which is really not that much. And then you can make guilds. There's a whole lot of stuff. There's a quote unquote membership matrix, which will show you all of it'll show you all of the different kind of limitations per subscription level. So I won't go into that much. There's a link on the news story on RPG Fan, or if you just go to everquest2.com, then you can kind of find it from there. So.
All right. We're starting to run long here. So I don't mean to cut you guys off, but maybe one more news story, and then we got to wrap it up.
Ooh, I'll jump. I'll do 3 quickly. So Dragon Age DLC coming in August, now with more golems.
Yay.
It's supposed to be harder than standard Dragon Age stuff,
Come
I
get
guess.
some.
And there's going to be a puzzle.
Oh,
So they say. I mean, that's
all
what.
the Dragon Age puzzles suck. There, I said it. They're all terrible.
No, not the one in Shalestown. That thing was cool.
Oh God, no! You basically just sit there and fiddle with it until it works. Like there was one in Awakening that involves runes, and I basically just clicked on stuff until it worked. For like 30 seconds, I just clicked on stuff. I'm sorry. I love you, BioWare. You guys are great with characterization. You guys are decent with combat, verging on great. But God, when it comes to puzzles, you guys are terrible. I'm sorry. The puzzles in Dragon Age are awful. They're just awful.
Baldur's Gate 2 had awesome puzzles.
I don't know because I didn't play, but these puzzles were just. It's not. I'll play Baldur's Gate 2, but these puzzles are just click it until it works. Like
Yeah,
and
so that's
puzzles are in most games.
DLC.
Ugh.
That's that. So I mean, they're calling it quote unquote an advanced challenge for even the most experienced players. So
And the
it'll
only
probably
thing
be harder.
And the only thing in Dragon Age that can ever cause a problem is a mage. So there's just going to be mages everywhere.
Yep. Anyway, so then last two stories. Radiant Historia is announced in Japan. So it's a DS RPG. It's being made by a bunch of the people who made Radiata Stories, and Mitsuru Hirano, who worked on some of the Shin Megami Tensei games, is directing it, and Yoko Shimomura is doing the score.
I have become interested.
Yeah,
apparently
got me up.
Apparently it's based on like the notion of the game is based around time travel. So you have your
there we go again.
your main character, and you go through your story, and then you get to go and look at the events in through other characters' perspectives. And one of the examples that they give is you're going to be one of the parts of the games is looking at the point of view of the main villain's story. So it should be an interesting. I mean, there's not a whole lot of details right now. It's supposed to be pretty traditional according to the Famitsu article, but I suppose we'll hear more about that eventually.
I look forward to the sequel where we kill off every main character and blame everything on the new character.
Hey, don't be hating on Chrono Cross because it may appear on somebody's top RPGs of the decade list.
I was not. I love Chrono Cross. Don't get me wrong. I love that game. That was just me saying, being cynical about the time travel thing. I love Chrono Cross. I'm way to give it away.
Give what away? I didn't say it was on there. I didn't say it was on my list.
Chrono Cross came out 10 years ago. We don't have to worry about spoilers.
Yeah, if we spoiled Star Ocean 3, then
some people don't know who Lynx is. It's important.
Oh, see, now that's even more of a spoiler. We were being vague before.
He's a
It's like
giant
saying, hey,
panther.
by the way, the last boss is... I'm not going to say it.
We'll cut off his mic before he says anything.
Finally, the last news story. 3 Tales games. They're new, kind of.
Man.
One of them is a port of Tales of Graces to the PS3, so maybe it won't be super terribly buggy and look prettier.
We'll never see it in the United States. Thanks, Namco.
That too. Then there's a entirely new Untitled Tales game that has been announced.
Tales of Murder.
Yeah.
Which I will enjoy not playing in English ever.
And so that's also going to be on PS3. And then Tales of the World Radiant Mythology 3 has been announced for PSP. And it'll be coming out in 2011 in Japan sometime.
When did the Tales series start? Because it feels like I looked one way for a couple of years and I was like playing other games, and then I came back and there were 37 Tales games, and I was like,
Tales of Fantasia for the Super
Tales
Nintendo.
of Fantasia. Yeah.
Okay, so that was the start. But like, when did Namco decide that they were going to start turning them out like a puppy mill?
Right after
Symphonia.
Symphonia.
What, 2 for the PS1?
Okay.
There was Tales of Destiny and Tales of Eternia.
I guess
Which
I
is
missed
awesome.
it. I guess I
Yeah,
missed it.
it was this last generation.
Okay, yeah, I was playing Final Fantasies and whatnot, but I guess it just like the Tales games snuck up on me.
Here's the thing, like there honestly aren't that many of them in North America. Like there are a buttload in Japan. Like I've got an import copy of Tales of the Tempest, which by the way is awful.
Awful.
Yeah.
Awful. Yeah.
But
Awful.
like we don't even like Namco Bandai, if you're going to localize these types of games, choose better or localize them
don't-
all.
For example, we got Tales of Legendia, not Tales of Rebirth.
Yeah.
What happened there?
We didn't. We got the original Tales of Destiny for PS1, but we didn't get Tales of Destiny 2. Likely because the brilliant minds at Namco, when they localized Tales of Eternia, localized that as Tales of Destiny 2.
The reason they did that was because Tales of Eternia was copyrighted because of He-Man. I think it was He-Man.
Oh, that's right. I remember that whole thing.
Yes. Oh,
So they called it Destiny 2 instead of Eternia, and I was like, I think He-Man as I have the power, so yeah.
and many faces, you will guard over here because you have many faces. Sorry, that was before your time, Zach. There was this show called.
It was.
There was this
I'm
show
aware. I'm aware. There's also a show called Thundercats. I remember seeing like an episode of that when I was like, three.
No, wait. Do you remember Silverhawks?
No.
'Cause
Oh,
that-
wait. Is that the one that's like?
That was like the stupid.
Is that
step-
Tatsunoko?
No. That you're thinking Gotcha Man.
Yeah.
You're thinking
Oh,
Gotcha
wow.
Man, which was
I
originally
remember
the artwork
Voltron.
done. The
and-
original artwork done by Yoshitaka Amano. So there you go. We have come full circle back to RPGs.
I remember Voltron and Transformers Beast Wars and
Yeah, that
Beast Wars was awesome.
Beast Wars was awesome. That was such a great. Remember when Optimus Prime died? Spoilers. That was awesome.
Okay, we've gone
Hey.
so Beast Wars not an RPG.
But there was a horrible PlayStation 1 game though.
There was.
Okay.
There was a really bad PlayStation 1 game. All right.
Beast Wars came on right after Digimon. That was awesome.
Digimon.
Digimon, Digital Monsters. Digimon are the champions.
I do want to say one last thing before we end, and
We're
that
gonna,
I'm
we're gonna
playing-
bring up big bad Beagleborgs.
No.
I watched
No.
that.
No,
VR Troopers.
Yep.
I'm going to say that I'm currently playing the beta for an MMO that I'm under NDA for, and it's fantastic. And it's not the MMO you think it is. I can't even talk about it yet.
Is it the StarCraft MMO?
Yes.
Can you tell us what company it is?
No, because that would give it away.
Is it the Dragon Ball MMO? Is it the Dragon Ball MMO?
I can't look. I am
You
actually
can't
under.
bring this up and then expect us not
I
to
am
pester
under an NDA. I can't say anything.
Can we ask you if it's
So
been
in-
announced?
What if you told us and then we cut it out of the podcast?
Is this
Oh,
the
we should do
MMO
that.
of Cool Runnings?
Oh,
You should totally do
okay.
that, 'cause then it'd be like,
See, that's the death prompt in that game is when you die, as opposed to the World of Warcraft Resurrect Now, yes, no. It says Sanka, you dead man, and you press yes or no.
you could type in Jaman.
And now I'm sad because John Candy's dead. Oh.
I am very sad.
Okay, I think we should wrap this up, guys. I don't want to get John in any trouble. So everybody have a good time this week.
yay.
done.
Yay.
So what are we all gonna do after this show's
Play
over?
StarCraft.
We're all gonna play
StarCraft.
Sorrow Tassadar.
We're all gonna play StarCraft. So sorry to all the listeners that we got off on a tangent there, but it is kind of the biggest game of the year, so you have to,
Yeah, and I mean, you guys are probably playing it too, so don't hate on us.
Yeah, don't hate on us. Yeah, go play Star. So someone's gonna be like, I don't play StarCraft because those games are stupid. I played Tales of Vesperia.
Vesperia is cool though.
I'm not saying it's
yeah.
not bad, but StarCraft is kind of.
All
if
I
you're
know
gonna-
is when Diablo 3 comes out, we are going to have a hell of a podcast talking about how I no longer have a life.
I think when the Diablo 3 comes out, Steven and I are going to need to go into rehab. I'm going to
They may as well
lose my
just
job.
shut down RPG Fan.
Yeah, I'm going to lose my job, most likely. I'm just going to become an invalid and some kind of troglodyte and just sit there and play the game all day. So
With
That'll be
synergies,
awesome.
I can do over 2,000 damage.
that'll. Oh my god, yeah, there we go. Okay, well if I put one more skill point in, I get another skeleton, and that skeleton it begins. Now I want to play Diablo 2. This is awesome. This is awesome. All right. Okay. Oh, John just told us what it is. Okay. Now we all know and nobody else does. That's awesome. All right. I'm going to end the podcast now. So for John, Steven, Zach, and myself, thank you very much for listening, and listen to us next week.